Good evening, everyone. My name is Shiva Montgomery, and I am the Senior Manager of Fundraising and Development Events at the Myositis Association. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for our November Empowerment Clinic, Managing Mental Health Through the Holidays. We're going to get started in just a few minutes as we allow more participants to join today's webinar. Thank you. Okay, good evening again for everyone who's just joining us. My name is Shiva Montgomery, and I am the Senior Manager of Fundraising and Development Events at the Myositis Association. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for our November Empowerment Clinic, Managing Mental Health Through the Holidays. The holidays can be a joy-filled season, but they can also be stressful and especially challenging for those impacted by mental health and mental illness. A NAMI study showed that 64% of people with mental illness reported holidays make their conditions worse. For many people, the holiday season is not always the most wonderful time of the year, according to NAMI's medical director. For individuals and families coping with mental health challenges, the holiday season can be lonely or a stressful time, filled with anxiety, or serve our well-being and mental health. We will have two presenters today for our mental health through the holidays topic. We will have Q&A that's going to be at the end of the presentation that we will hold to the end. If you do have any questions, please be sure to put those into our Q&A chat box. I want to start by introducing our first presenter, Christina Martinez. Christina is a licensed mental health counselor in Florida. She is a certified crisis trauma professional and eye movement desensitization and reprocessing specialist trained to treat trauma and related stressors. She has experience in treating depression, anxiety, trauma, mood disorders, and psychiatric disorders. Her specialization is treating individuals who experience chronic illness, inspired by her clients' experiences and her personal experiences with chronic disease and changes in physical health, emotional health, mental health, and the quality of life. Christina practices at Mindful Living Counseling Services located in beautiful downtown Orlando, Florida. So I'm now going to turn the presentation over to Christina. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending. Just give me one moment to pull up the slides. Okay. So as far as managing mental health, I want to call this as feeling empowered during the holidays, because sometimes mental health and with chronic illness, it feels very debilitating, and we don't want to feel like we have to survive through the holidays. We want to be able to feel empowered and thrive through it. And we've already done introductions. Okay. So on today's topics, I'm going to talk about gauging your energy, setting boundaries, and negotiation. There's going to be a huge emphasis on gauging your energy. When I teach this to my clients and also when I apply this to myself, this is really important when it comes to not only the physical things that come with chronic illnesses, but also with your mental and emotional health as well. So this is going to be the reasons why there's going to be a huge emphasis on this. So how do we do this? So we want to start with window of tolerance and what that means. So what is the window of tolerance? It's a helpful concept to understand our nervous system regulation. So when we are in our optimal zone of our window of tolerance, this is where our bodies, our minds, emotions will feel at its best. So knowing about this is to understand and allow us to move through the world functionally and relationally. Also keep in mind that our window is going to be unique for each person. So this is going to be depending on personality, background, how you were raised, genetics, the type of stressors that are in your environment, whether it's good stress or bad stress. And regardless of what type of stress, the body is still going to register it as stress. So there's so many things that can factor in on your window of tolerance. So keeping this in mind, it's separated into 3 windows. So you have the hyperarousal, which is at the above here in the red. This is where the person feels most, I want to say, anxious, anger, feeling restless, feeling almost on the go, like a hypervigilance, like the body just feels like it just won't stop. That's also mentally and emotionally where it's just running, 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 running. So you kind of feel like you just had like maybe 5 cups of coffee and you just don't know what's happening at this moment. Hypoarousal, which is the bottom part in the gray area, this is where the body starts to shut down. So this is where someone can become more depressed, lethargic, unmotivated. Things seem very stagnant. Maybe the things that you used to be interested in are no longer of an interest. Everything just feels at a sit still, very blah. So what we want to be in is in the green area. This is our window of tolerance. This is our optimal state. This is where, again, as far as you're at your best emotionally, mentally, and physically. This is where you're able to get such tasks done, or you have the cognitive function as far as to problem solve without going into a hyper state or a hypo state. So the things to consider of your window of tolerance, what keeps you in the optimal zone? So this could be something as simple as medication, making sure you take medications for the type of illnesses that you have, because it's going to bring you at a baseline where you feel like you're able to function. Having good boundaries. Boundaries is so important. We're going to be touching on this throughout the slides. Boundaries as far as boundaries for other people, and also keeping boundaries on yourself. So not overexerting yourself. If you can't do that one thing, don't do it, okay? It's going to set you into either shutting down or a hyperarousal where it feels like it's too much hypervigilance. Wellness routines, those things that this could look like anything. This could be something as simple as having like that cup of tea in the morning, or reading a book, journaling, making sure you make time for the children, grandparents, etc. Anything that has to do that brings more joy, brings more happiness or calmness into your life. That's going to be part of your wellness routine, which also goes into coping skills. So deep breathing, mindfulness, grounding. So grounding can be something like as far as connecting to the outside with nature, as far as like feeling like your body is connected to everything that's around you, like feeling the chair underneath you, feeling like the desk in front of you, or your surroundings. So that's part of grounding. So the things that bring us out of this window, actually, you know what? Let me backtrack. Window of tolerance, going back to that. Our window of tolerance can actually change over time. So there might be days where you have a large one and you can do a lot of things, and there might be days where it comes smaller. And we're going to talk a little bit more of that in a couple of other slides. But what's going to bring you into hyperarousal or hypoarousal? So hyperarousal, remember, that's anger, that's anxiety, that's on the go. Hypo, depression, lethargic, stagnant. So the things that bring you into these zones, it could be something as simple as less sleep. if you've not been sleeping well, or maybe sleeping too much, more than normal, skipping a meal, poor boundaries, again, back to the boundaries for other people and for yourself, overexerting yourself. So this is really important when it comes to working with your energy. I always teach my clients, do not overexert yourself. And we're going to get into that information as well. So when you're learning about yourself, you want to take note of the things that could put you outside of your window of tolerance. So this, I like to always introduce the spoon theory. The spoon theory was developed by Christine Messerandino. This was based on her personal story of chronic disease and her analogy of what it's like to live with it. So she developed this in particularly how to explain it to friends and family, because with chronic illness, there's no picture of what it looks like. So, which is why her website, which I put here, www.butyoudon'tlooksick.com. So when we are dealing with these type of chronic diseases and illnesses, a lot of times people are not going to know, because it's like we expect the worst of someone's appearance when they're ill. So if we're always maybe like, hey, we like to take care of ourselves, of like having a nice presentation of ourselves, but we have a chronic illness, it's like, well, hey, wait a minute, you look good, you don't look sick. So this is a big problem that comes up a lot with communicating and having other people understand. So going into this as an explanation, this is also a really good tool to gauge your energy and how to stay within that optimal zone of your window of tolerance. So, so when it comes to this, and again, it's going to fluctuate on certain days. So there might be a day where your window is much smaller, and maybe certain things might put you in a different zone. So this is how we want to understand those days, and then those days where we have a larger window. So how do we use the spoon theory? So it's spending your spoons. This is like a currency. So the average is 12 spoons in a day. And again, this could change. Maybe tomorrow might not feel well and it's like a 10-spoon day. But on average, we're looking at 12. So we need to determine what activity costs as far as spoons or currency. So we have some that only takes 1 spoon, maybe taking meds, watching TV, getting dressed. That might be a 1 spoon. A 2 spoon is taking a shower, socialization, paying bills. 3 spoons is cleaning, shopping, making dinner. And 4 spoons is working, kids going to school, doing yard work. This again could change. There might be a day where taking a shower actually feels like 4 spoons. And that's okay. So when we look at this average of 12 spoons a day and we notice that things are taking up more spoons, that's okay. That's just going to let us know where our energy is for that day. And when you understand that, this is where you're better able to set a boundary, take care of yourself, and also not overexert yourself. So I put a few points here as far as when it comes to spending your spoons. So again, the number of spoons used can depend on your day. Losing sleep the night before can limit the number of spoons of the day. So if you lost sleep, that might be like 3 spoons taken away today. Traveling for the holidays, you want to store up your spoons for the days that you need it the most. So let's say you got your 12 spoons today and you only use maybe 6. Just because you have 6 left and you feel good and you can do more doesn't mean you need to use them. Save those 6 spoons for the later in the week or the next day. So it's kind of like, oh, you want to save up that money and save it for that big day where you need all the money. You want to determine how many spoons it is to interact with loved ones. So it's the holidays. Sometimes we have family members or friends that might be a little difficult to be around. So on this little chart here, socializing is 2 spoons, but maybe that one person might take 3 or 4. So you also want to know, when it comes to boundary wise, how many spoons am I giving for this person to be in my space? How much energy it's going to take out of me? How much mental and emotional it's going to take out of me to be with someone that may not add to my day? So that's something to think about during the holidays. So when that happens, that's where you want to limit the time. And we'll talk more about that when it comes to boundaries. Avoid using all your spoons in one day. Again, just because you have all 12 and you feel good and it's like, oh man, I'm going to do that one more walk, or I'm going to go lift that weight. Don't do it. Don't do it, because then the next day you may be at a deficit. So you want to keep some of that for the rest of the day. So if you've already used 5 and you're good, you took care of what you needed, that's okay. Use the rest of the day to rest, have some fun, whatever that might look like. All those things that we're worried about is always going to be there. It's not leaving. It's always going to be there. The dishes are always going to be there. The laundry is always going to be there. So if you have extra energy to do it, but you know you've spent too much spoons, or you need more spoons the next day, save it for the next day. And again, just because you have the energy doesn't mean you should continue with more tasks. So how do we put this with boundaries? So I have 3 little areas here set. This is kind of like a more Cliff Notes, maybe a little smaller than Cliff Notes when it comes to boundaries. So setting boundaries can be for external others and internal ourselves. So I put a couple examples here. No, I'm not going to dinner tonight. I am tired and I need rest. If you are not gauging your energy, if you're not paying attention to your boundaries, you may step over your own boundary. It's like, well, I may be tired, but let me go. And then the next day you might feel very spent and you're like, man, why did I go? I knew I was going to be this tired today. I can only manage to make one dish for the party. So if you are cooking something or bringing something and they're like, oh man, you know, I love when you bring this and I love when you cook that. And they're asking for like 4 or 5 things. And you know, in your capacity, in your energy, even mental, emotional, that you can only bring one dish, stick to one dish. Do not people please. They have lived this long without your dish. So they can take care of it. It could be another day. Your boundaries are going to be based on your needs, wants, and desires. Always pay attention to that. So I put an example here. 8 p.m. is too late for me. I'll stop by around 4 p.m. to see the grandchildren. So, you know, we have a bunch of different families. Some people have like 2-3 Thanksgivings in one day, different Christmases. Dinner is late, or the party is going to start at like 8 or 9. And if you know 8 p.m. is when you start shutting down, not because you want to, but your body is just like, no, then 8 p.m. is too late. And if you still want, well, let's go back. 8 p.m. is too late. So your needs is you need rest. But your want and desire is to see the grandkids or the other family members. So this is where kind of like negotiation comes in, or compromise. It's like, okay, how about this? I'm going to stop around by 4 p.m. and see the kids. So you're still meeting your wants and desires, but you're looking for another way to do that. State the facts. Be honest of what others and yourself are capable of. So I put an example here, going back to like dish. I'm assuming everybody cooks, or food in general, and holidays. I don't have the strength to make the dish for you, but I can guide you step by step. So if you have the capacity to just be there as an assistant, I can tell you how to make this dish. That's it. As far as when it comes to that, is part of that communication and still making sure that you're within the energy that you have. So some of the things that I did not put in here when it comes to boundaries. So I know holidays sometimes is not the greatest time of year. So maybe there might be, this is around a time where someone important has passed away. And for you to process these things, if your needs are based on, I need this alone time for a day or a few hours, but people just want to come in and make you happy and all these kind of things, which is beautiful and wonderful. But if you know that you need that small space to grieve, do it. Set that boundary. There's nothing wrong with grieving. You're always going to grieve. The only problem is when it becomes a problem is when it's stuck. You want it to always fluctuate. You always want it to move and change over time. And hopefully that makes sense since I can't get feedback right now. But so it's like always making time. Like if you need that time for yourself, put that boundary there. Going back to difficult family members, a lot of times I have clients that come in and it's like, there's that one family member that really stresses me out. I want to like spend less time with them, or I don't want to be around them, but then this other person's going to be there and I want to be with them. So set a limitation. I'm only going to be at this get together for about an hour or two. What you feel is within your capacity. And then how we navigate as far as like avoiding certain subjects. So this I would recommend working more one-on-one with a therapist when it comes to your unique situation, but when certain subjects are coming up, it's like, okay, you have a choice. You can either walk away from the subject, you can also help redirect the subject, but you don't have to sit there and listen to it, depending on what the subject is that's coming up for you. So there's a lot of like things when it comes to communication and boundaries. Sometimes talking about certain subjects is going to spend some of your energy. So also know which subjects are going to take more out of you than actually give. So a lot of this stuff is going into negotiation. So negotiation is a necessary need for any circumstance. So this is something that you always have to do for yourself and for other people, for everybody. This is something really good to have, because you want to pay attention to your own needs, wants, and desires and what your feelings are. So they're telling you something like, hey, this doesn't feel good. Why doesn't it feel good? Well, maybe this is a certain need that's not being met. Okay, so then how do we get this met? So part of this is being responsible for your own feelings, needs, and desires. That doesn't mean that you're not taking responsibility. It's just reminding you like, oh, these are mine and I can do something about it. We don't have to wait for the other person to do something about it. So this is where you want to communicate those things. And like right here, it says you must ask for what you need. So if we can't communicate, our needs and wants and desires and feelings are telling us that we need something. So know that you have a voice to be able to express that. And if it's not going to be on the same page, then you have a voice and a choice to be able to negotiate those things and compromise with your loved one, friends, family, etc. So here's some just like quick holiday self-care tips. So remembering the basics: healthy food, rest, movement, decompress. Make sure you take time to decompress. Whether you are the individual with chronic illness, the caregiver, the children of the family listening to this, whoever the audience is, always take time to decompress. Practice saying no. No is not a bad word. No is a good word. Set realistic expectations. If you know that you have the energy to only do 2-3 things, Don't put that expectation to do 6 things in one day. Surround yourself with people who make you feel good to be with. This is so important. So again, I know there's a lot of negotiation, compromising on the holidays, but always supplement that with bringing people in that make you feel good to be with. You can counteract those things and limit the time with the others that don't. Enjoy the imperfections. So someone forgot to defrost something and y'all got a frozen turkey or something. Like, a little frustrating, everyone's hungry, but it's kind of funny when you think about it. Like, enjoy those imperfections that come up, those things that don't go planned, because a lot of times our plans never go the way we wanted. And savor the good moments. So even though this could be a hard time of year, savor those good moments, even those small ones. Like, hey, you know what? I got up today and I felt good. Savor that moment. Or I was able to tie my shoes today. Savor it. So it doesn't matter how big or small those things may seem. Make sure you take time to acknowledge it and appreciate it. And thank you for attending. And this is my contact information. So this is a number that you can either call or text, and an email as well that you can send any questions or any information that you might want to know, or even just a simple hi. Okay. I'm just going to leave that up for a couple moments.
Thank you so much, Christina, for providing us with your insight. I especially enjoyed your piece around boundaries. Setting boundaries are so important, as it allows you to not only find peace within yourself, but it also helps to manage your mental health and also to avoid those uncomfortable or triggering situations that often come up around the holidays. So again, thank you so much for sharing that piece with us as well.
You're welcome. Okay.
Okay, so next I would like to introduce you to Holly Jones. Holly was diagnosed with polymyositis with interstitial lung disease at the age of 19. In 2014, her lung disease progressed, causing her to develop pulmonary hypertension that required her to be on oxygen daily. After 6 years of being in clinical remission, the pulmonary hypertension progressed into congestive heart failure in October 2020. Living with diseases that attacked her muscles, lung, and heart has not stopped Holly from accomplishing her life goals. A social media entrepreneur, Holly also serves on our TMA board of directors, as well as co-leader for the TMA's Women of Color Affinity Group and support leader for the Houston, Texas Regional Support Group. Holly lives in Porter, Texas with her husband and 2 children. Holly, can you please share a little bit more about yourself, and then we can dive into some more questions about you and how you typically like to spend your holiday season?
Well, for one, thank you for that introduction. That was that made me want to pat my own self on the back. Thank you very much. And I want to say thank you, Christina, for that amazing presentation. I'm going to take some of those nuggets with me this Christmas. And I wish this presentation was here about 7 Christmases ago, but we good now. But yes, so I've been having polymyositis literally for half of my life this year. And I always speak about my husband, and he's in the audience tonight, so thank you for being there. He's been with me for 17 years of this journey with polymyositis, so he is a part of my story. I always advocate for mothers in myositis. I gave birth to 3 babies, 2 are still living. My daughters, all they know is mom being illness. My husband nor my children knew me in a healthy state. So our normal is the normal. And I always want to encourage women who want a family to make sure you get the right team, the proper treatment, the proper doctors to start that family if you want to go that route. And of course, I advocate for my myositis, women of color. I love that group with all of my heart. We are doing so many things this year and last year. Also, Chevelle left out that I was the ambassador for Pump Fit Flex this year, which was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, meeting everybody at Funk It Flex and at the APC, or Annual Patient Conference in Florida this year. So I think that's a little bit more of me. Just want to let everybody know that I advocate for women with women with maternity and myositis, also having children in myositis, and pulmonary hypertension awareness month is this month. So that's why I'm rocking my purple head wrap. Their color is purple. So if you want to learn more about pulmonary hypertension, please just Google it, or you can even type in interstitial lung disease. That's where mine came from. And it's a little different than interstitial lung disease. It deals more with the heart. So pulmonary hypertension is prevalent in our community, and I think more awareness needs to be brought to it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Holly. So I do want to go ahead and jump into our first question. Can you start by describing your typical holidays to us?
So my holidays kind of transitioned from my childhood to my adulthood. Growing up, my mom and dad were divorced. And so I would alternate holidays between them. And so when I got married, my traditions kind of carried over. We would spend Thanksgiving with my husband's family. We would spend Christmas with my family. Then we would spend New Year's. And so every holiday would always be alternated between all of us. So the biggest thing that I wanted to speak about that I took from Christina's presentation was learning how to set boundaries and being around people during the holidays. A lot of people don't know this about me, but at one point, my family on my mom's side, we didn't speak for almost 7 years. We went literally like 7 Christmases without speaking to each other. I don't want to get into what happened, but it was bad enough to not go for like 7 years. And it took actually Thanksgiving one year to bring our family back together. I had a relative that came to Houston, and his son was in a soccer tournament. And even though we hadn't spoken to each other, something in my heart just did not want him to spend Thanksgiving, knowing that he's like 10, maybe 20 minutes away from me, spending Thanksgiving in a hotel. And I know that our last words to each other weren't so kind, but 7 years later, you just have to agree to disagree, and sometimes practice the Christianity walk that you say you walk. And I say, you know what? I cannot let you be my cousin and you're 20 minutes away spending Thanksgiving in a hotel. Come over and we will have Thanksgiving here at my house. And we have spent holidays with each other ever since. So, I think it was well said, well spoken by Christina, by saying that, hey, you have to set your boundaries, of course. And then sometimes you have to know who you can be around during the holiday season. And had that happened 2 years prior to him being in Houston, I probably would not have invited him to my home. It was not my time. My boundary was set, and I wasn't ready to cross that line just yet. But I don't know, that holiday, it did it for me. So, but yeah, long story short, but that's what we do for the holiday. We alternate back and forth between our families.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us, Holly. I'm so glad that you were able to repair that relationship with your mother's side of the family. And I do, again, also love how you mentioned about the boundaries. Like a few years ago, you had the boundaries in place where that conversation with your cousin couldn't happen. But, as time progressed, you were able to kind of shift your boundaries a little bit and able to, again, repair that relationship. So I'm super happy that you were able to do that and that you're able to spend holidays with your family. That's amazing.
Yeah.
The next question, how do you manage to keep a positive mindset given all you have to get done during the holidays?
How do I keep a positive mindset? Okay, fun fact, I love Hallmark Christmas movies.
Don't we all?
I love them. I even watch them on repeat. I probably watched, like, if I watched it in 2015, I'm like, oh, I don't remember, and I'll just watch it again. Like, I just love, and it puts me in a space that that Hallmark does. That it gives me positive thinking, to see good faith, see people trying to save ski lodges and, you know, family businesses and things like that. What also puts me in a positive mindset is listening to gospel music and Christmas music during the holidays. I love doing puzzles and being positive to others. It seems as if though when I smile at someone and they smile back, or, you know, that gives me a positive mindset and outlook during the holidays. So just finding little joys throughout the season and celebrating the small victories throughout the season is what, you know, keeps me in a positive space.
Perfect. So also with talking about the positive spaces, so earlier when I was reading off your biography, we did mention that you do have polymyositis, also interstitial lung disease, and also congestive heart failure. Do you feel that your mental health is impacted by having to deal with these chronic illnesses every single day?
Yes.
And if there, do you feel like that the weight of those illnesses is impacted even more around this holiday season?
Oh yes, especially like outside of illness. And when I say this in my group before, the women group, myositis is actually not the worst thing I've experienced, you know, in life. Like when you just take illness out of life, life can kick anybody down, you know, from losing both of my parents before the age of 30, losing a son, you know, like, and then also losing family members in the midst of all of that. It weighs you down because the faces that you're so used to seeing every holiday season are gone. And then dealing with the health, you don't know which year is going to be a good year for health for you. Back in 2020, Christmas was supposed to be held at my home. I have just got out of the hospital and got diagnosed with congestive heart failure and all that while I was there. So dealing with it can bring on like depression and sadness and things like that. But I always tell people, find something that anchors you, whether it's your religion, you know, whether it's meditation, whatever you practice, let that anchor you. Because there was a Soul Sunday that Oprah did where people say the glass is half full or half empty. And the guy that she interviewed, he said, just be grateful for the glass. Just be grateful for the glass. And that really spoke to me, because you're going to have days where you're going to think, my glass is half full, you know, or my cup runneth over, and you can pour into other people's glasses. And then sometimes you're going to look at your glass and go, I don't have anything to give myself. I don't have anything left. But the beauty is you have a glass. I mean, and to me as a Christian, that's saying, I still have life. It may not be the best quality to what someone else might think is good quality of life. So often I've been told that I have a poor quality of life. And I'm like, okay, well, for you, my life may be a poor quality of life. But for me, it's not poor quality of life yet. I'm able to wake up every morning in my right mind. I'm able to get up and get dressed on my own. There was a time where I could not dress myself. There was a time where I could not feed myself. There was a time where I could not walk. So for you to look at me today and say that I have a poor quality of life because I have oxygen therapy, you don't know my story from 19 years ago when I was confined to a hospital bed. That's poor quality of life. But even then, laying in the bed, still being able to think in the right state of mind and know and be present and know what is going on with my body and things around me. I guess as a Christian cannot picture that as poor quality of life. Poor quality of life is where you're laying there and people are making decisions for you. So, you know, I might be going a little too far and I apologize, but, but yeah, so no, it does have its moments. It does. That's just life. It has its moments, but I have my faith that anchors me, and I encourage anybody to find something to have a release, to have something to anchor them as well, to get through it.
Yeah, that's super important to definitely have that anchor. Like you have to have something that you're looking forward to each day. So that also helps. Of course, like you said, you're going to have your struggles, but when you have something to look forward to, like your faith, your family, anything, that's important to you, I feel like that at least helps get you through
Right.
any difficult times that you may have. So for our next question, what role does gratitude play in your life?
This is now that I think about this, it's actually the story that I told you guys before we jumped on the webinar, dealing with my husband in the beginning. I thought I wasn't, worthy, like young, successful man dating, sick girl. And I felt like a burden at times. And I would always go, I'm sorry. He would help me put on my shoes. I'm sorry. He would help me stand up from the couch or chair, or help me step up a step or a curb. I'm like, I'm so sorry that you're doing this for me. And he was like, stop saying that you're sorry. And so me being the person that I am, I thought, how can I express that I'm sorry, but not in a way that it's going to be a negative connotation with it. And to still, because my version of saying I'm sorry was saying thank you. And so that's what I chose to start saying after saying I'm sorry. So from that point on, anything he ever did for me, it was a thank you. And I still feel like I don't give enough thank yous, like being together 17 years, I don't think I can have enough thank yous to give him, to let me live in a space where I can be myself, where I can be vulnerable, where I can be authentic, where I can cry, where I can laugh, where I can just be. And I don't even know like how you can express a gratitude that deep or for that long. But yeah, definitely have to show gratitude. And I think in return, in some way, I get gratitude for acknowledging him. He's probably grateful that I see him and that I see what he does is not going unnoticed, and I'm grateful for it. So I think it works both ways. I don't think that the gratitude is one-sided. And I think that's the beauty of gratitude. You put it into the atmosphere and it comes back.
Perfect. So I do have just one more question for you, Holly, before
sorry.
we go into our general question and answer. So you've spoken very highly about your husband, your family, and having such a large support system, with their TMA Women of Color and also your support group. Do you have any advice or suggestions for people that are struggling with like mental health and loneliness who may not have such a large support system? And what do you just any advice for them and how they can deal with any, feelings of loneliness or isolation that they may experience during the holidays?
I think it's okay to say that you need that time for yourself. Like, don't beat yourself up for going, I'm not ready to be around others or anything like that. But then, if you feel like you need the support and that you want it, I'm a firm believer in giving it. If you go and volunteer somewhere, sometimes, like I said, what you put into the atmosphere, it will come back to you. I volunteer to support women of color. And in return, when I'm speaking and pouring into them, they speak and pour back into me and give me that support. You can also go to church. I always say that I have yet to see a church that will close a door and turn its back on somebody. I know a lot of people go, oh, church, but that might be that particular person in that church. That's not the whole community of church. And the reason why you would go to get the support that you need. But yeah, I would say start by having a positive mindset of support and what support would look like for you and what you want from it, and put it into the atmosphere. And I really do believe that it will come back to you, the support that you feel like you deserve and that you want. So I say join a group like me. Okay, being a leader, co-leader for women of color in Houston and all this and that. As a leader, you don't really get as much support in quotation marks, right? So I go outside, I go to She Inspires Change. That's a support group. I go to Pretty Girls Get Sick. That's a support group. Unique Guidance. That's a health support group. So you have to sometimes go outside your comfort zone, and there's so many things that you can reach virtually if you are afraid to go personally to get the support. You can show up to a Clubhouse room. Nobody will see you. You can show up to a Zoom. Nobody will see you, and you can get all the support there. You can ask your questions. You can do whatever you need to make sure that you have the self-care that you're supposed to have. So I would encourage you to join Women of Color or any other affinity group that we have at TMA. That's what it's there for. I don't want to sound negative, but to say that you that it's hard for you to find support in 2022, you can find support. There's, whether you want to call it in, get online, go in person, all it takes, you have to want it. You have to want the support, I think.
Well, thank you so much, Holly, for sharing with us. So I am gonna also bring Christina back in as well. And we do have about 15 minutes for Q&A, so I do want to go through those questions as well for our community members that have joined the conversation and webinar tonight. The first question, which I feel is directed more to Christina, what are the best ways to handle energy challenges during the holidays?
Good question. So I not only do this for myself, but with my clients as well, is finding what helps give you energy. For me, that is definitely, again, good rest, making sure that I have a night routine before bed to make sure that I'm able to rest. I take a lot of supplements to counteract cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone. So it doesn't matter what kind of stress. It could be good stress, like a baby being born, getting married. It could be a bad stress, like this person made me mad. Your body is going to register it as stress. So always take the things that you need to help supplement your body to be able to cope through the holidays for that. And then also going back to the spoon theory, if you feel tired that day, make sure that you take that time to rest. And if there's something has to be done, it has to be done that day. Only do that one thing. Everything else can wait. Okay. It can wait on another day, or this is where, going back to what Holly was talking about with support, find the support. It's like, you know what? I don't have a lot of energy with this. Can you help me by picking up this order for me? Or can you help me look for this item so I can order it? Here, take my card. You know, when it comes to shopping, food shopping, cooking, making sure you delegate tasks. Do not take it all on your own. Nobody does well with that. Okay. Don't be the superhero. Delegate tasks, and don't be afraid to do so.
Thank you, Christina. We have a question for you, Holly. They did do a comment first, so they want to let you know that you are a rock star before they gave you this question. Their question is, how do you manage your holiday cooking and shopping with having a busy life and also having a life with your husband and kids as well?
Okay, well, let me put this disclaimer out there. Holly does not cook. I do breakfast. That's about as good as it's gonna get. As far as, because my husband is an amazing cook, so I'm not even gonna embarrass myself, okay? As far as shopping though, let me tell you, I did some parenting tips last year at the, when we did the virtual APC. Parenting tip, online shopping is your best friend.
Yes.
I shop online. I do my groceries online.
Yes.
I do everything on, and I say, you know what? I used to think that it was going to be expensive and all this kind of, no, I actually save money by shopping online. Because when I go in the grocery store, I want everything. When I shop online, I have a list of what I need, and I go in and I get what I need. I pull up. I don't even have to get out the car. I don't have to waste energy. I have a 13-year-old daughter that is taller than me. She helps me unload groceries and things like that. Or when my husband is home, he helps me. But yes, like, use all the tools that they have for people with disabilities. Like, maybe online shopping did come from the pandemic, but I really think like that was a blessing in disguise for people with disabilities, because you don't have to go in a store and risk getting anything from COVID to pneumonia to flu. Like, my health is even better. I can't, it's like online shopping is how I get it done, and it's how I stay healthy. If that helps any, but yeah, don't be afraid to go online. And then they almost kind of pay you to shop online, all the coupons and specials that they run for online shopping. That's how I get it done. But I don't cook. No.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. How can family and friends help loved ones who are dealing with mental illness?
I always say be on the horizon. That's always been my quote in my family, be on the horizon. Because you have those people who like to be in the spotlight, so they can say, oh, I was there for you. Or, like, I was there for, they want that clout, right? And I'm just sitting back, chilling in the sunset view, in the sunrise view, and whenever I see them and they need me, I'm there. But I always just stay on the horizon, watching out. When they need you, you'll know it. And be gentle. Always lead with love. Always speak with empathy. And I'm telling you, that's the best thing you can do for somebody with mental health, because at the end of the day, whether it's mental health or just having a bad day, you just want to be seen, heard, and understood. So just be on the horizon, wait, be patient with them, and be empathetic.
I agree with all of that. Absolutely. And if anyone is familiar with the love languages, use those love languages. So if they just need time to just sit alone, but you know what, maybe getting a home good cooked meal, maybe do the dishes, that's a way to show support. It doesn't have to be words of affirmation. It doesn't have to be time spent. It all depends on the person. So if you know this person very well, you know what they need. And if you don't, always ask. Say, hey, I am here for you. Just let me know. What do you need? And I'll bring it, or I'll be there. And you don't have to talk about it. Sometimes just spending time and talking about other things is all you need to do. Or sometimes I have clients, and even myself, sometimes I just want that person just be in my energy, in my space. Just watch a movie together, or I'm reading a book and they're playing a handheld game or diddling on their phone or something. Just any of those things.
For the next question, I'm currently experiencing some mental health challenges, but unsure of how to communicate my feelings to my family and friends. Do you have any advice?
Yeah. Well, I'll let the experts shut it.
Oh.
Shut it down. But my advice, sometimes you can't communicate, and I understand, because some people aren't confrontational, or you might feel like it's confrontational if you come to them to express how you feel. The first thing that pops into my mind is write a letter. Write a note. And even if you're afraid to stand there as they read, just, can you read it when I'm gone? And I would appreciate it if you could process it before responding, or even put that in the letter. If you don't even want to say that, put that in the letter. Like, please, really hear what I have to say. But I would write it. I've done it before. when we lost our son, I didn't know how to express to my husband how I felt. And I wrote it in a letter and I gave it to him. So, I mean, that's the reason why that popped into my brain. Like, if you're suffering through something, just put it on paper and that's going to help you get it out. Even what they do with the letter, once they get it, it's the ball's in their court, but at least you got it out and it's not sitting and festering inside. So I would write a letter.
Do you have anything to add to that, Christina?
Oh, sorry, I was jumping
No,
in.
you're okay.
No, I love that so much. It's so beautiful because it's just, as a clinician, sometimes I have clients that they don't know how to express it. And I will tell them, here, take this paper, write it down, or they'll type it in their phone and let me look at it. And then I will sit with it. And I'll even tell them too, because sometimes you might get a little antsy, like, okay, you know, I'm having a moment here so I can process what you just said, so I can respond in a way that may be more beneficial or useful, whatever that might be. But I highly encourage, yes, write those things. Also, if you're very expressive, turn it into a story, a poem, a painting, anything to be able to release it. You just want to release it. And then sometimes, especially when it comes to artwork, I love working with people with artwork. You're just drawing, you don't even know what it is, let it out, and then wait a day or two and go back to it and observe it and see like, oh, that's depression, that's anger. I see what this means. Write it out for yourself. And you still feel uncomfortable verbally talking to your family. Again, going back to what Holly said, write that letter. I always encourage that with all my clients. Write it. Write what you feel comfortable expressing and take your time. And then when it comes to boundaries, you do it in your time when you feel it's ready or necessary, but don't do it for others. Do it for you.
Thank you. And we do have time for one last question. And that's they come in for you, Christina. Where can I find mental health resources?
Well, that's a very, looking at it in a broad way, the NAMI website, I love that website because there's so many things when it comes to like your own personal mental health to look for help and support groups, but also for family. So I've sent a lot of families there to get support from other family members of dealing with a loved one that has a mental illness. They also have courses there, depending on the location, to better understand what your loved one is experiencing if you are the person that's the caregiver, the supporter that's going for these sources. Also, I always recommend looking into your community. So there's always going to be a community health center or hospitals that are going to have the resources to reach out of what's available to you locally. So always look onto their websites. Again, we're in the day of age of like Google and electronic things, instead of having to drive everywhere to find these resources. There's going to be so many different health centers that are going to have these resources that are going to be more specific for you. So I can only say here for Florida, if there's something for LGBTQ, there's the Zebra Coalition. If you're looking for shelter, domestic violence, there's going to be Safe House. So there's going to be a lot of these resources locally that even local fire sheriff departments can have as well. Community health centers are going to have case management. So if you're eligible to get case management or even just ask for a list of resources.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And a special thank you again to both Holly and Christina for sharing your time with us today. And also thank you to our participants for joining in today for our empowerment clinic. I hope that you were all able to receive some great tips and suggestions to help manage mental health throughout this holiday season. If you do have any questions, please feel free to contact the TMA office or send us an email at tma@myositis.org. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I hope you all have a great holiday season. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.